Hi, all, and welcome to our final installment of SNHU Celebrates GIS Day. We're so excited that you're here. We're wrapping up today's events with a Careers in GIS panel. So we've got some exciting panelists with lots of different types of experience using GIS in different roles that we're really excited to have. Before we get started, I just want to talk about our dedication to accessibility here at SNHU. So thank you all for being here. Your experience at SNHU is really important to us. It is our policy and our practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this presentation's design or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, please call or email the appropriate accessibility centers. For online students, this is oac@snhu.edu, or you can call 866-305-9430. For campus students, it's cac@snhu.edu, or you can call 603-644-3118. And for faculty and staff, hr@snhu.edu. Thanks so much. So for today's agenda, we're really excited. We're going to introduce today's panelists. We have three excellent experts in GIS in different roles and different experiences coming from various different areas. We'll have a moderated portion that I will facilitate with some questions that we've already pre-prepared, and then we'll have lots of time for open Q&A for those questions. We are recording this session. Your mics and your cameras are disabled, so if you have questions you'd like to ask directly to a specific panelist or all three panelists, feel free to put those into the chat. We will have probably a good 15 or 20 minutes of open Q&A towards the end. All right, first up we have Katie Miller. Katie is a GIS Specialist 3 at CDM Smith. She's also an adjunct faculty for Southern New Hampshire University. In her role with CDM Smith, Katie creates flood insurance rate maps. She's an accredited GIS professional by the GIS Certification Institute. She graduated from Appalachian State University in May of 2020 with her master's in geography and has tailored her educational and work experiences to focus on GIS. Thanks so much for being here with us, Katie. Next, we have Brian Howell, is a senior GIS analyst at Leidos, bringing over 15 years of expertise in geospatial analytics and technology in order to deliver innovative, spatially driven solutions in support of the Department of War. Brian earned a bachelor's degree in geography with a concentration in geospatial and environmental analysis and a minor in geoscience from Virginia Tech in 2009. Throughout his career, Brian has excelled in both the federal government and private defense sectors, showcasing advanced skills in GIS analysis, satellite imagery interpretation, cartographic design, 3D modeling, and Esri web application development. His recent expertise extends further to include applying GIS to geotechnical characterizations and the subterranean domain, terrestrial LiDAR scanning experience, and the creation of facility digital twins. Thanks so much for being here with us, Brian. Last, we have Milady. Milady Meadows earned her Bachelor's of Science in Environmental Science with a concentration in geospatial technology from Southern New Hampshire University in spring 2021. She has worked both in the public and private sector and currently serves as a GIS project manager at Rock Technologies, leading initiatives that strengthen internal processes, knowledge sharing, and client onboarding. Her work focuses on aligning teams, refining workflows, and driving consistent high-quality outcomes. Well, thank you all so much for being with us. Thank you, Milady. We're really excited to have some SNHU representation here tonight. So we'll get started with our moderated questions. So I'm going to pass this to Katie first. Can you share your career journey and what led you to pursue a role in geospatial and geography in information systems?
Yeah, absolutely. As I was graduating from Appalachian State in 2020, I got my foot in the door with my first internship with South Dakota Game Fish and Parks. And then after I graduated, little did I know COVID was coming, but no one did. And so I got a 6-month contract with the Bureau of Land Management, doing cartographic work, making a very big, extensive map for them. And then COVID hit, needed a job, got something with USGS Aeros. That was not directly related to GIS, but was close enough. And at the time, taking anything you could get. But it came with the caveat of having to move to Sioux Falls, South Dakota when COVID was done. Decided I didn't want to move there and continue that career. So I moved to Fayetteville, Arkansas, where I am now. Got a GIS job, pretty entry level with an engineering firm, working in water and wastewater. Enjoyed that, found a better opportunity where I am now, with CDM Smith making the flood insurance rate maps. And I've been with them for about 3 years now, thoroughly enjoying what I'm doing. And it's been really exciting finding that good fit, having that GIS career that I'm really enjoying.
Excellent. Wonderful. We look forward to learning a little bit more. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah.
Next, I'll pass it to Milady. If you could tell us about your career journey.
Yeah, sure. So we moved to Kentucky right before really I graduated at SNHU. And just before I graduated, I got a job with the Commonwealth of Kentucky as an environmental scientist. I worked in the Division for Air Quality. So it was primarily a technical writing role, but I was able to bring my GIS skill set with me to that role. So I started making some static maps we wrote state implementation plans that we would send to EPA. And I really enjoyed that. And this was kind of towards the end of COVID. So the return to office mandate was starting to become more popular, and the state was no exception. So I decided to seek out a role in the private sector. So I had a little bit more remote flexibility. So I got on with a company that did aerial acquisition and processing. So I worked in the ortho department. I learned a lot about imagery and raster data and all kinds of good stuff. So I was there for 2.5 years. I worked my way up from a technician to a lead analyst. And I had my hand in many pots, I guess, at that point. I was doing aerial imagery processing, QA, QC. I was doing some training, project management, lots of different things. And I really enjoyed the project management aspect. So I sought out a role in project management. And so that's how I ended up with Rock Technologies. I am an internal project manager. So while I don't work directly with GIS data anymore, I am constantly surrounded by it. We are a managed services company, a cloud managed services company. So we work with GIS teams all around the world to help bring their on-prem infrastructure to the cloud. And then I work with our internal teams on things like process improvement and ways that we can just be more efficient. It's a lot of automation and just different areas that we can develop. So I've tried out a few different flavors of GIS career, and I'm really happy with the project management side of things. So that is where I currently am.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Milady. Yeah, it's great to be able to work with people that you've already, kind of had that type of role and know the ins and outs and some of the challenges. I'm sure that's a good benefit as a project manager that I'm sure your teams appreciate.
Yes, it's nice to speak the language, so it helps certainly.
Absolutely. Wonderful. All right. Well, Brian, could you tell us a little bit about your career, I cannot say that word today, career trajectory, and how you got to where you are right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So after I graduated Virginia Tech in 2009, I was fortunate enough to get a position with NGA, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, as a geospatial analyst. I was with them for about 6.5 years and did a whole host of different type of projects, but it was mainly a mix of geospatial, GIS work and imagery analysis as well. So everything from suitability analysis, terrain analysis, to remote sensing and evaluating satellite imagery and the various different sensors that the national government has there, and tasking them and some secret squirrel type projects as well. But was with them for about 6.5 years, learned a lot of great things, and then eventually made the decision to switch over to the contractor world, where I joined Raytheon for about 1.5 years, supporting a contract with the Department of Defense, I guess at the time. And From there, we were doing a lot of GIS work that was heavy in the subterranean domain, doing geotechnical characterizations for various locations. And that role really got me kind of out of my comfort zone, which is, a good thing. At the time, it was a little scary, but definitely when you get out of your comfort zone, you learn a lot because you got to test yourself. So was with Raytheon for a while. They ended up losing their contract to the current company that holds that contract, which is Leidos, and I've been with them for 9 years now. And we're basically doing a lot of the same work, but we're also really pushing the envelope on a lot of different initiatives, whether it's machine learning and AI and how the geospatial component goes into that, as well a lot of 3D modeling and digital twin development, as well as a lot of the standard GIS work and suitability analysis. The fortunate thing with the contract that we're a part of, it's a lot of research and development. So we really get to play with some cool toys and get to kind of push the envelope in a lot of different areas in support of the Department of War. So definitely learned a lot and been all over the place supporting the different contracts there. But it's been a fun ride so far.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Brian. Yeah, it's nice to be on the leading edge of some things and being able to kind of test out the technology and the limitations and how far it can go. So really appreciate that. Next, I want to start with Milady. So what initially sparked your interest in GIS, and how did your educational background prepare you for the career path that you took?
Yeah, so I like to say that I fell into GIS by accident, though I also believe that nothing happens by accident. So while I was at SNHU, my advisor actually suggested a GIS course. It was just an elective at the time, but as soon as I took it, I was immediately in love. So I am a very visual person, and I like to see things and how they work, and GIS was a way to visualize data in a way that I didn't know was possible before that. So my initial decision to go into environmental science was I was generally passionate about sustainability, and I knew that this was a broad field that I could find something in, and then it kind of just drilled down into GIS from there. So thanks to my advisor at the time, I guess, it was very helpful. So the way that my education has specifically helped out in my career was just to show me what tools were available and what I could use. And I've been able to run with that in everything. So just like when I worked for the state, like bringing GIS to the state, we as in Kentucky, so I'm in central Kentucky, we have a department for GIS, but they weren't typically making smaller maps for, random technical documents and things like that. So just having someone on the team that had that skill set made a big difference. And that opened a lot of doors. I started learning more about air dispersion modeling. And then when I went to my next org, I was, working also in 3D mesh and digital twins very closely with Esri's reality mapping team. And I think it's just that initial exploration of SNHU showed me what was possible throughout my coursework. And I just kind of continued to run with that. And it's been very helpful to have that, I guess, natural curiosity of what you can do next. Like, how can I make this better? How can I run with this? So.
Absolutely. Thanks, Milady. Yeah, it's such a tool to be able to visualize what you're already analyzing and have that component together can make all the difference. So I appreciate you kind of walking us through that, and that you've worked in places that wasn't a GIS role, but having that skill set really applied. I'll pass it next to Katie. I know a lot of folks are in environmental science, geoscience, geography. And just kind of what sparked your initial interest in geography and GIS?
Yeah, I have some similarities with Milady, where I feel like I also fell into GIS. When I was going into college, some folks are blessed with a passion, love what you do, and you never work a day in your life. I was not blessed with this, and so I didn't know how to monetize my current passions, and so I went into college with the mentality of fund your passion. find a job that I can make some money with, that I enjoy doing. And I started with geology, and found that it certainly had ways that I could make money, but I did find that I needed to have some level of passion in what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. Um, and so I was going geography, geology, probably similar. It'd be easy to make a jump. And so I just went into geography thinking that it would be a next natural place to start looking. Turns out they're completely different fields, but I did find my passion in GIS. And it turns out that that thing that I was missing was art. I mean, Milady, you kind of hinted at it, is that I really enjoy the science of working with data. And I found that in geology and knew that about myself. But it turns out I was missing an artistic component that I really found that I could get in making maps with GIS, you know, not just working with data, but figuring out how to make it visually, you know, understandable to other folks. And I think that's the first half of your question. The other half about educational background preparing me. Is that I found that as I was understanding that GIS was the passion place for me, where I had enough passion and would be able to get a job that funded other parts of my life, I was able to realize throughout all of the careers that I had that got me to this point working with CDM Smith, that everything acted as a stepping stone, you know, as Milady said, fatefully almost, like little stepping stones to gain knowledge in certain ways that I didn't understand would be valuable to where I am now.
I love that. Yeah. I always kind of was fascinated with GIS and maps and the communication aspect, right? You can communicate so much information and you can tell a story with maps and data and information like that. So really glad that you pulled that out from your experience, Katie. Thank you. And then last but not least, Brian, can you tell us a little bit about, what sparked your initial interest and how your educational background supported that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my path was a little different compared to Milady and Katie's there. I kind of knew going into college what I wanted to do there, and knew that geography was my passion, or at least that's what I wanted to pursue. So it all for me started, my family and I, we took a cross country RV trip, and for some reason I was given the maps to kind of follow our path across the country, and that, I swear, kind of sparked it for me, because the whole time I was like, oh, we're at this exit, we're crossing this state boundary line here, and I literally just kind of followed our whole way there. This was well before the era of GPS and Google Maps and all that, so kind of like analog traveling there, but that's kind of where it started, and I also had a passion for always drawing and doodling and that type of thing, so I think that kind of pulled me into the cartography side of things, and from there, when I applied to Virginia Tech and got in with their geography program, the first few classes, I was essentially hooked. I said, yeah, this is kind of what I want to do, and I want to expand on that, and obviously learn more about GIS, as well as natural, like physical science disciplines and geology and geoscience, and not to take anything away from SNHU, but Virginia Tech had a good lot of geoscience programs, and a mix with the geography department. So that's where my passion kind of grew from, and then just taking a lot of those different classes, and being exposed to the various disciplines that GIS could be applied to, was very helpful to see which direction I would like to take, and drill down on, to get that additional knowledge and expertise to then hopefully make a career after college there. So yeah, it's kind of didn't quite fall into it, but I definitely pursued it.
That's great. I love the story about taking an RV trip. I had a friend who had basically tracked gas prices all the way across the country, every place that they had stopped, and made a map of it. And it was just such a fun activity for them to do. I'm curious, Brian, you mentioned about like your coursework and kind of the wide range. Do you remember like a favorite course that you had taken?
Yeah, I think I actually really liked they had an oceanography and a meteorology. Between those two, I'm kind of a beach bum, so I would have to say oceanography. Learned a lot of cool things there, coastal processes, and the sediment movement on the shore there. So yeah, I'd definitely say oceanography kind of caught my interest for sure.
Very cool. Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. All right. So I'm going to pass it to you, Ryan, first, and then I'll kind of go round robin again. So looking back, can you think of any key experiences or opportunities that most shaped your career path, whether it be an internship, a mentor, a class that you took, someone that you talked to who does the role that you do now? If there's some kind of experience that you can think about.
Yeah, I think so going back to my days in college there, I was fortunate enough. I applied to a GIS intern position with the Marine Corps and was able to work for a summer in Quantico supporting their mission. And after taking obviously a few GIS courses and some geoscience related courses at Virginia Tech there, it kind of solidified a lot of things for me and the direction I wanted to go, and seeing how GIS could be applied to the national defense sector and the federal government. I also was pursuing at the time, at least my freshman year, was potentially joining the Navy through the NRTC program there. And I ultimately decided not to pursue the Navy after that first year. So I stepped back out of that program and said to myself, well, I think I'm going to pursue my geography major and geoscience minor, and ultimately land some sort of position after college with the federal government. So kind of those two things definitely shaped the direction where I wanted to go, because initially I was thinking of going in the environmental science or kind of more earth science related disciplines and applying the GIS there. But yeah, that internship kind of stole the thunder and pointed me in a different direction. So
That's great. Yeah, fork in the road can really help you make a choice on your path and propel you forward. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to pass it back to Milady. Tell us about any key experiences or opportunities or people that influenced your path.
Yeah, so I still consider myself early career. I've been in GIS, I guess now 4 or 5 years, though sometimes it feels much longer depending on the day. But I have found that, my networking with other Kentucky GIS people has been what has helped me the most. When I look back and I'm like, most value add, I will scream it from the top of the Kentucky mountains, is just join your local GIS groups. Kentucky has an awesome one. We have the Kentucky Association of Mapping Professionals, so CAMP. Don't just, pay a membership fee and occasionally read the emails, like really get involved, because at least in Kentucky, a lot of our GIS giants are a part of this organization. And I sit on the communications committee. I'm the chair. So in that position, I've had ample opportunity to talk to people in so many different sectors, whether it is utilities or public or private, natural resources and conservation. We have people that work in nonprofits. It just gives you a really wide variety of people that you can reach out to for questions. Many of who I consider mentors are from camp, and that has just been pivotal for me. My current position, though not directly from, word of mouth or like talking to people, came from a mentor though. I sat down and I was like, hey, these are some of the things that are happening in my current org that I'm not necessarily happy with, or I don't see myself being able to stick with long term. What are your thoughts? And she was able to point me to a couple other people who then pointed me to a couple other people. And it ended up with a GIS recruiting service. That is how I found my current role. So really just talking to people and getting involved in your local GIS community has been something that has helped me out tremendously. So
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Milady. Yeah, like the importance of connections and networking cannot be undersold in terms of being able to get connected. And I know that Esri hosts a lot of different communities, and that local areas have their own kinds of chapters and things like that. There's a lot in the Northeast. And then Kathleen asked a question about getting involved, again, with GIS. She's got an anthropology degree that she's pursuing. So yes, SNHU has lots of GIS courses. We will cover that towards the end on what ways that you can get involved by talking with your academic advisor or your career advisor. Lots of opportunity to both get connected and to upskill and learn some new things. So, all right, thank you so much, Milady. And Katie, talking about experiences, opportunities, people that influenced your path, anything that you can think of that was really pivotal.
Yeah, Goofy, that the most pivotal thing that comes to mind is deciding to go to college. When I graduated high school, I thought college sounded like a big scam, and I decided I wasn't going. And I joined AmeriCorps and volunteered with them for a year, dipping my toes into a bunch of different volunteer opportunities with them. And every time I met someone with a really cool job, I asked them, "How do I get to be where you are?" And without fail, every time I got my PhD, my master's, my bachelor's from X, Y, and Z. So, I mean, the most pivotal moment was realizing I needed to go to college to be able to do the kinds of things that I wanted to do. Then once I found GIS, I felt really like an open book of I found the passion and the career that I want to have uh, within GIS, now realizing that there are a million different kinds of jobs that a person can do as a GIS professional. I found a lot of value in that first internship that I had, and it's because being so entry level, they had lots of different GIS things that they had me doing, whether it was even just types, sitting at a desk, going into the field to collect data, collaborating with other folks within South Dakota game fish and parks. And I ended up learning a lot more so about what I didn't want to do, which honestly helped a lot. I feel like a lot of my GIS journey, starting as kind of a blank slate, has been shaped a lot by realizing, oh, I don't want to work in the field, or oh, I don't want to be doing this in my future GIS career.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those things that it's just as important to know what you don't want to do as what you really, really want to do. My first internship was in a cubicle, and that was just not for me. I was like, I need to be with the people. I can't be, um, working alone. So, thank you so much, Katie. We're going to toss it right back to you so I don't lose order here. So GIS technology continues to evolve as all technology does very quickly. What trends or emerging areas in GIS do you think students should keep an eye out on for future opportunities?
Automation. Automation is the name of the game from what I've seen all around. Good news, there are a million ways to automate things in GIS. I think AI is the big trending word in every career, and that can be used to automate processes. But I found that within GIS, there are always 3 different ways to get to the same outcome. And lots of hiring folks like knowing that they can hire someone who can take a workflow and make it into an automated process. So I know that can be done with AI, it can be done with Python, model builder, creating tools and toolboxes that can all be used in ArcGIS Pro and other GIS platforms. I found that some of those automation realms are a little far past my level of understanding. But good news is, again, there are at least 4 different ways I can think of right now that people can automate a process, which is so valuable. And I found a few that work for me, and hopefully folks who get into GIS can find some ways that automation can work for them too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Making things easier and faster is the name of the game. Thanks for sharing that, Katie. Milady or Brian, do you have anything to add?
I was gonna wait, but I can go. Yeah. So
Ladies first.
yeah, thanks. I strongly believe that the future of GIS is web GIS. Static maps are not sufficient anymore. People want real-time data. People need real-time data. I have friends that work, in GIS orgs that handle 911 data, and they need that live feed basically all the time. So in addition to automating things, like really stay up to speed with what's happening with our GIS Online and enterprise cloud solutions, because not only is data needed all of the time, but data is getting bigger. So with the org that I worked for previously, we did a statewide aerial imagery acquisition. Ended up being like 4.5 petabytes of data, I believe, because it was 3-inch resolution. And that is just going to continue to grow as sensors become, more efficient and better to have higher resolution imagery, and not just imagery, but other areas too. So having that knowledge of like web-based GIS, ArcGIS Online, Enterprise, and then being familiar with some of your bigger cloud providers too, just AWS and Azure, will be beneficial, because I think that's the way that generally things are trending.
Yeah, such an excellent point, Milady. Thank you for sharing. Anything else to add on that one, Brian?
Yeah, you guys both touched on what I was going to say, but to add even a little further, I'd say a lot of it too is, aside from the automation and web-based services, it's also a lot of custom built applications, and just custom everything. If you can take some very big data sets, sift through them, standardize them, normalize them, that type of thing, and then be able to build out a custom answer to a customer, whether it's web-based application or just very, very tailored data. That is kind of also the name of the game as well. Having that kind of computer science background, whether it's Python or computer science and web development. I know AI is here, but there's always going to have to be a person in the loop that has to train it, that has to fix it, has to kind of direct it where to go. But the field of GIS has, and Lady touched on this, or excuse me, Katie touched on this, is that it's expanded so much, at least in the last 15 years that I've been a part of it, that the roles of 15 years ago as a GIS analyst have now expanded like crazy. And you can learn certain things and specialize in certain things, but I think the discipline as a whole is going towards more an IT centric, very, very automated type of direction. And so knowing some of that would position you really well for a career.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for kind of tying it all together for us, Brian, in terms of trends. It's great. So I'm going to start with Milady, and then Katie and Brian, if you need to chime in with additional thoughts. I just want to be cognizant of time. Beyond technical expertise, what soft skills have helped you succeed and lead effectively in your role, Milady?
Communications, hands down. Being able to talk to people, talk to teams, has been incredibly, beneficial and helped me kind of my career take off. It's just being able to really relate to people. So having just those people skills, being able to read a room and kind of have your fingers on the pulse of a situation of what's happening, diffusing conflict when needed, those things are so important. Most of project management is people, right? So like I'm working with teams and managing people that I don't technically, I'm not over them. So I'm not, they don't answer to me, but being able to still work with those teams that kind of have not necessarily conflicting goals, but just different priorities, and kind of reorganizing those to kind of thread the story, I guess, into a single piece. Is very important. So having those communication skills is incredibly important. Getting involved with your networks and things just to talk to people, doing presentations, reaching out to mentors, all of that stuff will help you build those communication skills.
Absolutely. Excellent. Thank you. And Katie or Brian?
Yeah, I've been marinating on this question. I love it so much. And it's because I feel like there are two very poignant things that came to mind immediately. Communication definitely being one of the top two. And but I viewed it from a different perspective. I think that communication and problem solving are two of the biggest soft skills a person can have going into GIS. The problem solving being that there are always going to be, yes, soft skills, but really essential skills. there are always going to be 3 different ways that you can get to the same outcome in GIS, but the problem solving aspect is knowing the 3 different ways, understanding that some might be more efficient or more accurate than others, and being able to make those decisions of knowing I need to get from point A to point B. How many different ways can I use GIS to get there, and which one's going to be most effective? On the other side of that, I found that with the problem solving, I feel like user error is so inevitable in working with GIS, just because along with automation, there's so many steps and spaces that need manual intervention from the GISer. And so I found that 100% accuracy and precision when users are involved is never going to happen. So on the communication side of it, I found that I make mistakes every other day at least, whether they're small, hopefully, or very big. And so on the communication side of that, I found that it's been very valuable to honestly communicate with my managers. Here's a mistake that I made. Here's how I think I should fix it, but do you know a better way? And it's taught me a lot and it's humbled me a lot. But communication and problem solving I see as the absolute top 2.
Absolutely, yeah. And communication and collaboration in that problem solving, right? Like to problem solve independently versus working with others to get to the best solution. I love that, Katie.
Yes.
Then how about you, Brian? Any soft yet essential skills that are critical in your role?
Yeah, I was going to say collaboration. Essentially working as a team. We in my office there, I have a group of other geospatial professionals that I work mainly day to day. But we also have a lot of geologists. We have a lot of engineers. We have a lot of modelers as well. And being able to leverage their expertise and their particular fields and their experience to help drive the project and meet the deadlines is key. I mean, we work on a lot, like I mentioned, a lot of R&D different projects, and a lot of people have different skills. So we have people that are very versed in Python. I couldn't even tell you where to begin with that, but being able to turn to somebody and say, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to achieve. Are you able to help me?" And they might have a different angle to approach the problem from. So just being able to know who to reach and who to go to who to turn to is definitely beneficial.
Absolutely, yeah. Know your network, who to reach out to, and be able to problem solve together collaboratively. Yeah, I love these sentiments. I think they're so valuable in any field, but especially, I'm sure, working with GIS and technology and data and communicating that information to people. So I've lost track of who's going first. I'm going to pick on Katie first for this question. How important is networking or professional involvement in terms of conferences, online communities, GIS organizations for building your career? And I know, giving her a little shout out, Katie just got her GIS professionals certification.
Yeah.
So I'd love if you kind of highlight a little bit about what that process was like and, a very huge accolade. So congratulations also.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's interesting too because I hadn't been very interested in networking, sorry, until I got to the GISP. Well, since college, I hadn't been very interested in networking outside of the few work opportunities I get. But then for the GISP, they actually have a point system where you have to have so many points in, they call it contributions to the field. And this is essentially networking, needing to be involved in presenting at conferences, needing to be in, what is the word? I want to say sororities, but it's not, organizations. Being involved in organizations that are GIS related. And so this was the first time that I kind of jumped back into networking in that way and had found it very valuable just because I feel like it's easy to get a lot of depth when you're working in, specialized GIS, but lose some of the breadth along the way. So I know that through networking, I've been able to gain more of the skills that I forgot about and learn more about all of the other different kinds of GIS jobs that I haven't touched or looked at since, a PowerPoint in college. And as a side note, I found that I don't think quantity is necessarily the most important when it comes to networking for a GIS career. But I have found that a handful of very high quality relationships that I've had with folks who have GIS jobs have really helped me along my career path and in my professional path.
I love that. Thank you, Katie. Really appreciate kind of the insight to that piece of the GISP and your experience with that. Networking is always difficult, right? So being able to connect with folks, and Milady hit on it earlier of, GIS is massive, right? Like you could do so many different things, and going to a conference, you get to hear all these different things that you might not be an expert in, but just to get kind of that regular exposure to all the different tools and ways you can use the tools is super valuable. So I'll pass that to Milady next.
Yep, this is me back on my Kentucky mountains screaming, join your local GIS group. Camp has been wonderful. I'm also a member of Women in GIS. Both of these organizations have mentorship programs that you can join as part of your membership. So I am a mentor through camp, and I'm a mentee through Women in GIS. And that again just gives me opportunity to be able to hear, other people in the industry talk about what they do and how they've navigated certain situations. Specifically for project management, internal project management at that, I have found that GIS project management is very different from normal project management. I'm not going into my meetings, talking about risk analysis and, making Gantt charts. It's much more personal than that. And part of that is I work for a smaller company. So we're about 50 people. And so just having some, outside experience of other people who have dealt with project management in GIS specifically has helped me in my current role a lot. So I know for camp example, if you're a student, I think the membership is $5 a year or something ridiculously low. And most state GIS organizations have student memberships that are very inexpensive. And that gives you just an opportunity to get involved, join committees, start talking to some of the people that are there. The veterans of GIS from your area are going to be able to point you in the right direction when it comes to having questions about what you should do next, or just, general advice about certain companies and all of that good stuff. So network. If you can go to conferences, do so. I know it's sometimes a financial barrier, but if your companies, whenever you start, will pay for it, push for that. And don't just go, try to present. A lot of them have student summits where you can go and you can present, what you're working on at school. So just get out there, talk to people. It is, like I said, I'm on top of my mountain again of just yelling at it. So, but it's a great thing.
I love it. Thank you so much, Milady, and highlighting those different opportunities of Women in GIS group. Brian, can you tell us a little bit about networking in, your experience and highlight any of the benefits?
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably one of the biggest benefits is that you end up learning what other people are working on, what other projects they might be doing, other areas. I saw one of the questions in the chat was, anthropology or archaeology. You never know who you might run into that might be doing something along those lines. I know, Esri has a big young professional network, and you can join that. I know they host events all over the country, throughout the year, aside from, the conferences themselves. But yeah, there's plenty of organizations to join, whether it's your local county, maybe it's more of like a social group that's just getting together that likes maps and GIS, and, or, it's, at the state level, something like that, or it's just like a nonprofit. So I know there's at least in the defense world, the USGIF, U.S. Geospatial Intelligence Foundation. I believe they have some networking events and groups and stuff to join. That's more kind of for the classified environment, but it's geospatially focused and tailored. But yeah, I mean, it's a great way to just meet people, learn new projects, learn new skills, what people are doing, and just really kind of expand your horizon as to what the GIS field is doing and how it's evolving.
Love it. Thanks for talking about kind of the range of, networking opportunities from maps and apps to, working, with like, other, federal or contractors and things like that to be able to connect in various different ways, whatever's going to work for you, if it's in person, if it's virtual. There's a lot of webinar opportunities and things like that too, where you can find some professionals to connect with. So thank you all. I really appreciate the well-rounded answer to that question. We're going to do kind of a speed round of this one so that we have enough time. I want to allow for probably a good 10 minutes of Q&A. If anyone has any questions, please pop them in the chat. Melissa has been holding on to a list of questions that have come through, so we'll be able to ask our panelists. But we're going to do a little round robin. Brian, I'll start with you. So if you are just starting out or coming from a different field, what are some good entry-level roles? What have you kind of experienced or seen? And any kind of tips that you might have for someone who's kind of breaking into the field?
Right. Yeah, I'd say first off, I'd kind of identify if you're making a switch and you're trying to come into the GIS field, try to identify what discipline or what interests you that you would like to take the GIS and apply it to. Clearly, you have a background in that discipline, and I think GIS is the tool that would help benefit that discipline that you already know of. So understanding what your interests are and how you want to apply GIS to it, I think is probably the first step. At least that's how I would approach it. And then really just looking at open positions that you can kind of get your foot in the door, whether it's a GIS technician role, if it's just an analyst type role, if it's more of a cartographer role, anywhere that you have a foundation to start from, and then try to get in that way.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I think that the wide range of opportunity, right? You could be in public health, you could be in city planning, you could be in emergency management, environmental science, like the huge range of opportunities for GIS to be really valuable. So appreciate that sentiment. Milady, I'm going to pass it next to you. What technical skills, software tools would you say are most important to learn if you're interested in GIS?
Yeah, so Esri is the big one, of course. Being familiar with Esri's super expansive toolkit is important. So you want to at least be familiar with ArcPro. ArcMap is legacy now, so you don't really have to worry about that anymore, though I call it ArcMap still. So if you hear me say ArcMap, I'm talking about Pro. But yeah, so knowing either basic GIS, ArcPro, you can look into some open source if you are just breaking in. So, pulling in like QGIS and just generally understanding what some of these softwares can do. And then of course, I'm putting my sales cap on. I work for a cloud managed service company. So having some understanding of cloud infrastructure, whether that be through AWS or Azure, could help you depending on what you're wanting to do in GIS. There's so many different flavors. So I really like what Brian said about kind of understanding what your goal is and what your background is. And that's going to really help you choose, because there's a million and one ways that you could apply GIS to a role. So yeah, that would be the big things, is kind of understanding Esri and maybe QGIS, and then some of the cloud infrastructure would be helpful too, just for general knowledge.
Absolutely, yeah. And SNHU, all students, staff, and faculty have access through an Esri account. So you've got access to ArcGIS Online. You can download ArcGIS Pro, as well as all of their tutorials, and they've got an Esri Academy. So we'll highlight some of the opportunities a little bit later in the presentation before we close out. But really great points there, Milady. And then last but not least, Katie, how can students leverage or show their transferable skills when applying for a role?
Oh, how can students leverage or show their transferable skills when applying for roles? That is a good question. I'm going to pass for a moment. I got a little distracted, if that's all right.
Oh, no worries at all.
Okay.
So I'll pass it maybe back to Milady. You're coming from kind of a background in terms of environmental science, but also having, taken one GIS course, and, what type of transferable skills, or how might you kind of translate that into a role? You said you didn't have a project management background, but that's the type of role you're in. So kind of curious and kind of how you've kind of fluidly navigated that.
So I feel like the current role that I'm in is a great example of this. I had no formal project manager experience. I firmly believe that everybody is kind of an unofficial project manager, even if you're just your own project manager. But I was able to leverage a lot of that when applying for this role by explaining how I worked with my team. So going back to what Brian said about collaboration, really talking about, it doesn't necessarily have to be a GIS related project, but like, how did you work with the team? How did you resolve conflict? What soft skills you're bringing that still apply over, over any field or most fields, I guess. And then with, project management specifically, I was able to talk about organizational skills and how I would organize my own projects and manage my own time. I used my Esri reality mapping experience as a big talking point during my interviews with Rock. Just talking about how I worked with teams in different time zones and was able to, communicate issues that I was having or troubleshooting when I was, involved in alpha or beta programs. So I relied heavily on those soft skills of, how I handled certain projects before and how that could be applicable to whatever role I'm moving towards next.
Absolutely. Yeah. Excellent point, milady. Thank you so much. So I got one final question and then I'm going to pass it to Alyssa to facilitate kind of our open Q&A. I see some questions coming through the chat. Keep them coming. Love to see that. There's some really great questions, some specifics, some really open-ended. I'm going to pass it back to Katie because she teaches for SNHU. If you could tell all of your students one thing, one piece of advice, what might that be?
Learn the language. I think that's the most important part, first and foremost, because there's so many resources out there, whether it's through higher institutions, YouTube channels, there's so many ways to find the information that you need. I joke that Google is my most valued employee, and it's because if you know the right thing to type into Google, you'll get the answer. I don't think there's a GIS problem that exists in the world that someone hasn't already talked about online and found 3 different ways to solve. So learn the language.
Love that. Excellent. Yeah, I was going to say, if you Google the wrong thing or the wrong, term, you'll end up in a whole different direction. So that's such a great point to make. Thank you, Katie. All right. So I'm going to close out really quickly, and then we're going to get to the question portion here. So everyone, you all have access to Esri's portfolio of tools and tutorials and trainings. This is new this year. Previously, if you were taking a GIS course at SNHU, you had access for the single term that you were in that class, and then that was pretty much it. Now you've got free persistent access to ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Pro on the desktop if you'd like to download that. So for educational and research purposes, you can dive in there. You can work through some of Esri's tutorials. They've got a lot of self-paced trainings that are freely available. Some of their paced instructor-led trainings are at a cost, but they're discounted for SNHU. So Alyssa just posted in the chat there our Shapiro Library site with everything GIS here at SNHU. How to get started and logged in using your SNHU credentials, and some links just to kind of get your hands dirty in terms of if you've never used GIS before or you're looking to learn more. And then we've got several GIS courses at SNHU. IT 242 is usually my go-to. If this is something that's new to you, this is kind of a very broad set of skills that you'll learn that sets you up for additional learning. So Scott Robinson, who's also on the call tonight, teaches that course and does a fantastic job teaching. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Alyssa to give us a little quick plug about career, and then we'll do open Q&A.
Perfect. Thanks, Tara. And I will go quick because we did get a flurry of questions come in, so I want to be cognizant of that. But first and foremost, my name is Alyssa. I work on the career services team here at SNHU. So for those of you who have not heard about career services, we are a free career advising and career exploration service for all of our current online students. This is a free lifetime service as well for all of our graduates and alums. So whether you're starting a new career or maybe looking to advance in your current field, our team can definitely assist you in a variety of different ways. So please don't hesitate to start exploring your career options now. You can check out our dedicated Career 360 website where you can explore our actually specifically dedicated environmental science and geoscience career pages, which is chock full of resources, jobs, internships, tips and tricks, the whole shebang. But you can also, of course, email or call to be connected with a personal career advisor who can work with you more one-on-one. So with that, Tyra, I will turn it back over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So really appreciate everyone's questions coming through the chat. Thank you so much to our speakers, Katie, Milady, and Brian. Really appreciate all of your insight and expertise that you've been able to share this evening. Fantastic session. So Alyssa is getting our questions pulled from the chat here, and we're really looking forward to hearing some responses around just the field in general and different applications within.
Absolutely. So I want to go back. I had to go back a little bit. So I wanted to make sure we tackled this one of the first ones that came in. So this is from a student who posted that they used GIS many years ago in Forest Service, but now they're pursuing their anthropology archaeology degree, but want to involve it in GIS and find a way to blend it. Her question is this possible? What advice would you have to share for her? And we'll just popcorn it. Whoever wants to take it can take it.
Yeah, so I think I can at least give a partial answer to that. So yes, you can. I mean, a recent example, at least I've seen, is that there's archaeologists that are using LiDAR to peer through the canopies down in the Yucatan Peninsula down in Mexico. So they're looking for old Mayan ruins and indications of civilizations down there. So that's just one example, but I think your local county or state has an archaeology office or division that they use to go out before they build a new road or something like that. They would have to do some sort of archaeological survey in order to make sure they're not disturbing some historical site. So yes, there would be a need where they would need an archaeologist or somebody with a background in archaeology, but then you could apply the GIS to that to map those locations, to see what's been there previously, what's changed, that type of thing.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. That's great. We're going to keep it moving here, just kind of keep an eye on the clock as well. The second question we did receive was from a student who mentioned that they're getting their MPH and they discovered ArcGIS in her internship, and she used it to produce equity maps for a milk bank. Her question is, what should be my next steps toward getting more experience and or a job opportunity?
Yeah,
to plug, you go ahead, Milady.
I was just going to say, if you really enjoyed making like equity maps, you could look at other social areas that you can get involved. So I don't work with GIS data professionally anymore in my current role, but I have several passion projects where I make equity maps for, green spaces in my county and things. So you can still do all of that, create those things, take courses. John Nelson has a fantastic YouTube with a bunch of resources for creating cool things. And then look for entry-level positions. So a lot of those are a little bit of like grunt work where you're doing data entry or QA QC, but they really help you build skills that you can, transfer to a higher role.
Thank you,
That's
Milady.
lovely. Nothing to add.
Perfect. We will keep it moving here. We had another student who submitted a few questions as well. So one of the questions, the first one was posed was, I'm curious on where to start looking for opportunities, and also how would I approach companies or careers if I have little to no experience besides my degree?
I just want to comment on the last part of that. To have the degree is such a huge milestone in itself, and you might not realize it now, but if you've taken the GIS courses, you already have so much experience in GIS. And so I know something that helped me a lot that I think would help lots of other folks trying to get a career in GIS is to make a portfolio, an e-portfolio showcasing, here are all the things that I'm claiming that I can do in my resume or in my cover letter with GIS, but let me prove it to you by showing you screenshots and and little entries about here's the time that I did a site analysis with vector, raster, and other types of GIS methods. If you've taken even just one course in GIS, you already have some pretty good experience to be going out there confidently for an entry-level GIS job.
Thank you, Katie. Great insight. Another question that came up was, would it be possible, or what would be your advice if the student was interested in potentially a meteorology career path from geosciences?
I can jump in and take that one.
Go for it, Tyra.
My background is in meteorology, so I'm excited to see there's a lot of folks in the geosciences program that are also interested in meteorology as a career. Of course, you've got the major requirement course for atmospheric science. I would say connect with your instructor and learn as much as you can in that class. You're in a meteorology career. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And, you know, climate change and climate science are excellent courses to be able to take in addition to that. GIS skills are valuable. They were required in my in my degree program for meteorology. I think Brian talked about a lot of remote sensing data. So you can get into air quality research. I think Milady had talked about that of, air quality modeling. Meteorology is all about the maps. And so you can take all of the data and information around the atmosphere and the different layers of the atmosphere, be able to model a lot of those things using these pieces of technology. In March of 2026. Excellent. Yes. Yeah. Take the GIS courses. If you are in the geosciences degree, we basically scaffold from start to finish your GIS courses. So you'll be learning a lot of different things, a lot of different statistical analysis opportunities. And remote sensing is another great course to be able to take if you're in meteorology and want to use GIS. Great
Awesome.
Question.
Yes, great question. I love to see that you're already 2 steps ahead, already committed taking that class in March. That's very exciting. So, and our final question, again, we're a little bit over time. So once again, thank you all for sticking around. But in your opinion, panelists, when would be the best time to seek a future career in GIS while still being enrolled as an online SNHU student?
For me, logistically, immediately after graduating, I'd love to say like right now, but if time allows for it, apply right now. But the GIS jobs, they aren't going anywhere, and there are so many of them. I think you're good to go whenever.
I know that I applied for my state job in December and I graduated in, I don't know, May or somewhere along that in the spring. So it was a few months of doing schoolwork and, actual work. I think working for the state with what I did, that was feasible, but some roles may not be if they're going to be, heavier or more difficult. So you really ask questions if you're going to interview, make sure you're asking questions so that you fully understand the workload and the expectations and the hours, and make sure that coincides with your school schedule too. But for me, it was a couple months before I graduated that I really started to look.
Yeah, I would say if you're able to juggle both, that's great. I know, most companies now, they can be a little flexible, depends on the role and depends on what the project is. But like Katie mentioned, if you're able to get some sort of portfolio put together of examples of, just, courses or, areas of interest that you've kind of tried to practice GIS with and start putting together some, whether it's just basic static maps or get a student version of Esri and access to the ArcGIS portal, then you can start actually building some of these interactive web applications, stuff like that, just to show it's like, hey, I'm gaining experience outside of my typical job that may pertain to another job. So if you're able to balance both, great. But even if it's a little bit I think companies would look at that and say, yeah, this person's able to do certain tasks and has certain experience that they can then grow as you come on board with that company. But making them aware of your situation, I think is appropriate.
Thank you, panelists, so much. And that is a wrap for our student open Q&A. So Tyra, I will just turn it back to you for closing out.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Katie, Milady, Brian. Really appreciate the time all you've had to share. Really appreciate everyone for attending. And if you're watching the recording, thanks for tuning in. If you have any feedback or thoughts to share, we'd love to hear them. You can scan that QR code in the bottom of your screen. But thank you so much, Alyssa, Sue, everyone who's been able to support GIS Day today. We had such a successful day. I'm really excited. So hope everyone has an excellent evening.